So welcome to the practice today. I have prepared a little setup. If you choose to have this setup, or if you have remotely as much cushions as I have in this space, you might want to gather some. So what I've done here is I've placed 2 blocks under just to elevate or create an incline for the bolster. I put that bolster on top for that incline. And then I placed a blanket in front of that. And that is just to get my bottom up a little bit more because the bolster is quite thick. And I find that's aggravating my lower back discomfort that's already there. So if you don't have a bolster, don't despair. If you don't have 2 blocks, not a problem. I assume you have a blanket nearby that might be useful. If you don't have enough props to create this, you can just simply fold up a blanket, put that lengthwise over the mat and lie over it. If you then have another cushion, you might put that gently underneath the head. Now, if you have a setup similar to this, even without an incline, this is possible. I would, in that case, then on that side where the head goes, still put a cushion so that you can be comfortable and the head isn't falling backwards. Now, I assume you had a little bit of time to create something for yourself. And then once you have, or even if you haven't, you might like to sit on the mat. If you've got a construction like this, you might slowly lean over it so that the spine aligns with the bolster. And I keep talking like you all have this set up. So if you've got a folded blanket, see that as your bolster. You would want to start perhaps with your knees bent, the feet on the floor, and simply exploring what it feels like to let the arms fall to either side of the bolster. If you find this is very comfortable, you can stay, of course, just as you are right now. Maybe here a little cushion under the head could be nice too. If you feel you would like to add a bit of grounding experience, hip opening, let your knees roll out to the sides and touch the soles of the feet together. Now, as some of you might be familiar, this position for the legs becomes more intense the closer you draw the feet up towards your body. The further away you bring them, the more relaxed it will be in the hips, but perhaps also in the back. This addition is optional, so if it doesn't suit you, you can choose to leave your feet on the floor or take your feet out mat distance and let the knees fall in. We will come to this position perhaps towards the end, so choosing yours now. If it isn't a supportive, constructive rest, maybe it's the hip opening. As you find your place on your construction or the mat, you could also choose to turn the palms to face downwards today. If you enjoy the openness in the shoulders, keep the palms up, that's fair. But if you like to touch the ground, you could turn the palms down. Your shoulders will still try and relax on either side of the bolster. You could then add a little grounding mudra by touching your index and thumbs together and letting the hands face downwards. This is a Shin mudra, and it might assist us with the general intention here of grounding to begin with. Now, please stay in your found position. Please also change it, especially around your legs, if it's required by your body. And you might now be relaxed enough to draw the awareness inside of the body. Having explored your position, you might be aware of the physical realm, but now beginning to tune in with the rest of you. My intention is a reasonably grounding experience, but it is also about the card that I have drawn for today's practice. The card is from a deck called the Path of Light. And it is the upward path that I have drawn. While we are working today physically more on a grounding experience, without being grounded in who we are, there's no upward path. So it says here, every human heart can be raised to the light. Follow the upward path by aiming at embodying the divine qualities that will lead you to the realization of your true self and the experience of heaven on earth, or bliss, joy, happiness, whatever you want to call this. In a verse of the Bhagavad Gita, it says, these are the divine qualities of your true nature: devotion, courage, truth, love, wisdom, service, kindness, compassion, fortitude, discipline, self-control, temperance, purity, simplicity, humility, sincerity, patience, and generosity. These are quite a few qualities of your true nature. And you would have heard quite a fair few of them mentioned in classes before. Perhaps setting the intention of providing a solid ground for yourself so you can embark and step onto that upward path. Perhaps keeping those qualities in mind as you begin this practice by deepening the breath toward a full yogi breath. While you breathe in, let your belly expand now. Take your breath towards the lower ribs and then up toward your collarbones. And today, as you breathe out from the top, releasing from the collarbones, down to the ribs, and finally, the abdomen comes in. In breath, belly rising, ribs expanding, chest lifting. Breath out, upper chest lowers, ribs come in, belly releases. Keep the breath flowing like this, flowing from belly to ribs to collarbones on your in-breath, and the out-breath reversed from the collarbones to the ribs and to the abdomen. As you might allow the breath to be like this, feel free, if it's in your practice, to add Ujjayi technique. Fair if that's not yours as well. Just keeping the breath flowing in and out of the nostrils, upward first, downward when you breathe out. Perhaps noticing the challenge of the breath or the ease of the breathing practice. Keeping it perhaps challenging, but not exhausting, rather energizing or enriching, if not calming. Deep, slow breath in and out of the nostrils, following in your mind the path of the breath as it moves your body. You might come to a place where the breath feels sustainable, perhaps even throughout the practice today, where it feels less effort to breathe this way. Once you might have come to that point, you could then choose on each out breath, silently, or if your space allows you, aloud, to chant the seed sound Lam, that is for your base Muladhara chakra. So perhaps same length in breath, same length out breath, but chanting in mind or out aloud the sound Lam, Lam. As you might be repeating that currently, you could also change your hand position, and rather than resting them by your sides in the mudra, placing the hands towards the pelvis. Only options. Responding or changing if it feels right for you. Let your next out breath be the last sound of Lam. Before, if your knees are out to the side, you might use your hands to guide the knees up. They've been there for quite a while. So you might then choose to gently wiggle your feet out, finding the edges of your mat and letting the knees drop inwards. This might even feel nice if you never opened the knees out. Allowing your knees then to separate, and a gentle flowing of the knees from side to side, beginning to bring a bit of movement into the body. Now, there is an option of leaving the construction literally behind you, as you could slide your hands underneath your buttocks, tuck the elbows in, move the feet away, and then tuck your chin in as you rise to sit. If that's not yours, you could also just flop over onto your side and then come briefly to a seated position. We will change our setup now. If you had everything on the mat, please remove the bolster. You can have that handy maybe for later relaxation. You might like the blocks, if you have to, both of them standing at the short front edge of your mat. You can put the blanket to the side unless you like that underneath the knees in a little while. Once you've arranged or rearranged your space, please come to lie down on one side of your body, and you could rest one hand underneath, or even use your blanket or cushion to support the head. I will use that because this is my aching shoulder, and with that I'm taking a little bit of pressure away. Just sharing in case you find a reason here to do a similar thing. See if you can extend your legs out long. If your lower arm extends under the head, please do so. The upper arm might rest on the side of the body. And if you manage to fully extend yourself here, trying to lie here still, perhaps even closing the eyes for a moment and observing that there's a reasonable amount of balance in a side lying Buddha pose. Noticing micro movements that might adjust the body. And from that place, perhaps a deep breath in to reach both arms up over the head and finding length in the body. If that feels good, you might move your straight arms and legs a little bit behind you. Maybe even squeeze the bottom forward. Start bringing the heart forward. Maybe even the head comes a little bit back, finding that banana shape as you take a big breath in. And on the breath out, just softening, letting your arm come back down and swinging it behind, where you might bring your top knee up for a hug to the chest. And you could then draw your nose towards the knee as you take a deep breath out. You might slide your hand down towards your ankle, bring the knee to stack over the other. Maybe the foot slides into the hand instead, and you could bring that foot into the hand, or if you don't hold onto foot or ankle, just moving the top knee a little bit behind. So like in a dancer pose, you can open again the front of the body, while the foot or the ankle might move into the hand or the knee behind you. Take a breath in. And as you breathe out, draw your knee back forward. You might hug it back into the chest, nose towards the knee. We'll repeat that once as you bring the hand back around your foot or ankle if it gets there. Bring the knee back, the foot to the hand, opening the front body. Please make sure that the knee that you're holding the leg on is actually quite low. And once more, a breath out as you draw the knee up towards the nose. Let's lengthen the whole body out again, taking a deep breath in, extend yourself fully. And this time just flop onto the back like jelly on a plate. Now I will change sides, but you can stay on the side because you can now just listen to the words if you wish. So let's roll over onto the other side. Again, you can use your lower arm as a cushion, or if it's right, extending it even underneath. With your legs out long, you might even reach your arm up over the head. And for a full banana shape, you might even push your hips forward, the chest forward, moving your arms and legs behind you. Taking a deep breath into that extension. And as you breathe out, keep the legs long. Swing your arm, the top arm, just over the side of your body. The other arm can function here as a little cushion. And you might, for a moment, just observe how it feels to lie here, side-lying Buddha pose. You might briefly close your eyes, being aware of those little micro adjustments that we do when we think we do nothing. You could, from there, draw the top knee up towards the chest, give it a hug, and maybe even draw your nose towards the knee. You might then slide your hand down to your ankle or the foot, bringing the foot behind you, the knee backwards, maybe the foot into the hand. As you bring your chest forward again, lifting your gaze, maybe opening the front like in Natarashasana, dancer pose. And with the out breath, draw the knee forward again, the nose towards the knee, hugging everything in. Repeat that one more time. So hand might slide towards the foot. The knee comes behind, keeping it reasonably low towards the other knee, opening the front body. The hips are coming forward. The heart is opening. Deep breath in. And on the exhale, hugging the knee in again. Let's extend the whole body once more. As you reach legs out long and arms long, get into the stretch on the breath in, and then flopping onto the back like jelly on the plate. If you would like to keep a little cushion, please make it thin enough so the head isn't really that risen, but just cushioned. Shuffle yourself down onto the back as we are now. Let your arms release gently by your sides. Shuffling the shoulder blades ever so slightly under and placing your feet down at about hip distance apart. So with the hips, the knees and the feet hip distance apart, ground down while you breathe in. Start to squeeze your bottom up into the air, reaching towards a bridge posture. And a breath out as you're rolling the spine back down onto the mat. Let's repeat that a few times. Breathing in, lifting the hips. Breathing out and rolling the spine back down. While you might just repeat a few more times as it is now. Feel free, as usual, to take pauses when required or even supporting yourself. And with the next round, when you lift up into the bridge or Siddha Bandha Savasana, you have the option here of holding. Lifting the hips up while you draw your tailbone up towards the backs of the knees might give you more strength work, more extension through the front. And if your shoulders tolerate it, you might walk the shoulders under and even interlace the hands underneath the back, lengthening your arms down towards the floor. Another variation of the bridge, as you might hold here. Keep drawing your tailbone up towards the backs of the knees, strong in your glutes, strong in your legs, perhaps open in the chest. Then releasing the interlace of the hands, rolling the spine down ever so slowly. Letting the arms just drift a little bit away. And beginning another swaying of the knees. Now this time might feel a bit different. The feet might be a little bit closer together. The body is also a tad bit warmer, so maybe your knees are rolling a little bit further to the sides. And if that all feels good, you might start rolling your head too. Turning from one side to the other as we bring some deeper motion towards our spine. Now, when you feel balanced, you've done an even amount of movement to each side, bringing head and knees to center and taking feet maybe off the ground to give the knees a good hug and a squeeze in. That might prompt you to rock a little bit from side to side, perhaps getting into other parts of your back. After a little bit of rocking from side to side, the option on your out was to raise your nose up to the knees and to curl yourself into a little ball. Only to release back down onto the mat. Your choice now is to roll over onto your side, coming up to sit, or to rock a few times forwards and back, massaging your spine in a different direction before you come up into a seated posture. Bringing yourself from here toward a standing pose. So that doesn't have to be very elegant, but needs to be supportive and comfortable. I'm now removing my cushioning from the mat, and ideally maybe starting by standing at the short front edge of the mat. I will turn myself around for now. Standing at about hip distance apart, you might have a little rock here over the feet, connecting back towards the ground and the earth. And we will work with that grounded feeling. So keeping your knees lightly soft, relaxed, and beginning to just let your arms flop around your waist. You might notice how you're rolling to the edges of the feet. And as you might bring your arms a little bit higher to wrap them around your waist, You could also start to lift the heel of the ground. Don't overthink it. The heel will reveal itself to you. And you might even start to tap towards the shoulder. That might prompt you to look a little bit behind you. Then letting your arms lower again. Your stance might have changed. That's all good. Perhaps the heels are grounding. The arms are stopping the swing. You might give your shoulders a gentle shrug. Just keep your feet at that distance and notice energies. Energies present in the body. And perhaps a sense of the energy actually moving down towards the feet, the pelvis, to support you. We will work on this a little bit further. So perhaps having one block in front. If you do use a second block and you find squatting is rather difficult, maybe having that behind you, but you can also adjust the height of the squat, which will be my choice. So turning your toes a bit outward from here. The first squatting option is to lean forward, place the forearms on top of the thighs and use that as your squat. If your hips are happy with it, you could sit all the way low. Why is there a block that will reveal itself in a moment? You could touch the palms together even if you were to practice full malasana. The half version is evenly valuable. So find some length in your spine now as you breathe in. You might then use the block as you lift your hips, but also turn your toes forward and then bow down towards the legs. This is your standing forward bend. The block is not essential, merely a tool to support you. While you open your toes and lengthen the spine, breathe in. On the exhale, coming back to your variation of the squat. Lifting the hips back up as you lower your nose, the toes come forward then. Opening the toes as you lengthen the spine, breathing in. On the exhale, finding your personal squat again. Lengthen the spine as you lift your hips, turn the toes forward, and your out breath to fold. Let's move between those two in your own breath. As you turn the toes out, you exhale for a squat. You breathe in to lengthen, and then out to fold forward. Please do turn your toes each time to facilitate for the different postures. So outwards as you squat on the exhale. Forward as you lengthen on the inhale, and keeping them forward while you fold down on your out breath. So playing with these two postures and the transition for a few more breaths. Last round now. And finishing that in a standing forward bend. Whether you're using a block or not is up to you. Take a look down at your feet and how you place them, leaving the outer edges of the feet parallel in the forward fold. You can use fingertips against your block, the floor, or your shins as you breathe in to lengthen the spine forward for a half lift. And then breathing out to fold back down. Taking time now to uncurl the spine all the way up toward a standing posture. Give the shoulders a gentle shrug back as you come to stand. Lifting both arms up, breathing in. Drawing the hands down the midline with your knees soft, breathing out. Half lift, fingertips supporting, breathing in. Right foot stepping back, breathing out. Lowering the heel of this foot to the mat. Bringing both hands to touch inside of the front foot. As you breathe in, straighten both legs and let your right arm extend for triangle pose. Take that breath in as you push down into the feet. Find some length through the waistline and some openness through the chest. Top hand alternatively in the side of the waist. Looking maybe at the top hand or the bottom hand, and in either case applying a light chin tuck. Take a breath in, bend the front knee, let your arms lift up, warrior two. Let your shoulders be reasonably easy no matter where you choose to turn your palms. Keep your front knee stacked over your ankle joint and draw the feet lightly in toward each other. We'll take a breath in to lift and extend. A breath out as we release the hands down, lifting the back heel. You can choose now to step this into a down dog or bring the knee down and step it to all fours. No matter your position, if you're on your knees, also tuck the toes and lengthen the spine for a puppy shape. If you're in a down dog, you might walk out through the legs. Feeling into the length of the spine. On your next breath in, start to roll the spine forward, maybe untucking the toes. As you lean towards the front, the tailbone draws down. Knees can be on or off the mat. And with the out breath, keep your elbows nice and close and come to lower down onto the front of the body. As you take a breath in, just lifting the head and the chest lightly, grounding through the tops of the feet, Bhujangasana, Cobra pose. And a breath out to release back to the mat. Inhale, come onto hands and knees, or tuck the toes under and transition that back to downward facing dog, your choice. Nothing here to do but walking your feet now forward towards the front side of the mat. A breath in as you wave the spine long when you get there, half lift, Ardha Uttanasana. And a breath out to fold back down, allowing yourself this forward fold and exhaling to curl up through the spine. Raise your arms as you breathe in, maybe lifting the gaze. Touching the palms as you breathe out, slowly folding back forward, knees are soft. Taking a breath in as you lengthen the spine forward, your half lift. And stepping the left foot down the mat. Ground the heel of the foot and bring the palms to touch inside of your front foot. We'll take a breath in to straighten the legs, and perhaps it's the left arm that comes up. Alternatively, the same here, resting it to the side of the waist. While the legs are long, we're actively using the feet towards the ground to lengthen our spine. The chest is open, the shoulders back, and your gaze might be upward, little chin tuck, or to the lower hand, little chin tuck. Standing strong. And as you breathe in, bring a bend into the front knee, raise your arms out, shoulder height again. Whether that turned up or down is up to you. You might even rest one if required. Keep shoulders easy and gaze steady towards front hand fingertips, while your feet are lightly drawing inwards, holding you tall. Let's take a breath in to extend it all. A breath out as you release the hands Lift the back heel, same options here, knees to the ground or feet to the back of the mat, down dog or your all-four stance. If you're on your knees again, please do tuck the toes under, find a similar extension of the spine that you would have in a downward dog. And let's all roll the shoulders open, creating space between the shoulder blades. On your next inhale, roll your spine forward, finding your plank or kneeling plank. And on the breath out, keeping elbows close, lower to the floor. If the cobra worked for you, repeat it, or an upward facing dog. As you lift, your feet are deeply grounded. Your out breath either takes you back to down dog or the floor. The inhale might then take you onto your hands and knees, and you could choose between kapi and downward facing dog. Maybe finding a moment of stillness within the shape. And if you're on your hands and feet, softening the knees and stretching the tailbone even further back. And then taking a little walk as you bring your feet forward in between the hands, where you might breathe in to find the length in the spine and out to fold forward. Waiting for your next exhalation and starting to uncurl the spine as you rise to stand. Take a breath in, lifting the arms and drawing the hands to touch down at your heart center. Standing in Samastiti, you might choose to close your eyes. Maybe your thumbs are lightly touching the sternum, feeling your heart beating. As you might connect to all these beautiful qualities that we hold, that we can live as we step on our path, maybe of yoga on the mat, maybe of yoga in daily life. Feeling grounded through the feet. Take a breath in, maybe extending arms and gaze. And a breath out as you release the arms and bring them along the sides of your body. I will now use 2 blocks, but there's an alternative to the 2 blocks. I just wanted to give you options here. So if you're using 2 blocks, you might set them up on the highest setting as a support. Alternatively, you can use a wall. As this is not the wall, I will choose the blocks. But to demonstrate what to do on the wall is basically stepping a little bit back, planting your hands down flat, ideally both of them. I will spare that for my left arm. And then leaning into the shape so that when you bend forward from the hips, you're creating basically a box underneath you. The knees can be a bit soft, the hands will be spread out, the shoulders will be rolled back. That's your down dog against the wall. A down dog on the mat might look a little bit like this. Stepping your feet back, keeping hands on the blocks, and lowering your torso into the center. So whichever way you're choosing, finding this length in the spine, a tad bit of softness in the knees to facilitate for it. If you're practicing this against the wall, stay exactly as you are. If you're with me on blocks, come a little bit forward, bring the weight down into the blocks. Keeping the spine a bit long, you might step your feet in a tad bit, also building like a box shape in front of you. As we all keep looking down, let the right leg slowly lift behind you. Flexing the foot so the toes are facing to the floor. Lengthening the crown of the head forward. A variation here of a warrior 3. Notice where your hips are positioned. Are you rotating? Can you stand grounded facing downward? Breath in. On the breath out, landing your foot back down. Finding that same length in the spine again, just standing grounded on both feet. Now maybe shifting to the other side and perhaps lifting the left leg behind you. As it rises, again, flex the foot, turn your toes to face the mat. Keep the length in the spine as it is. The crown of the head reaching forward, so resisting the heaviness of the head and actively standing with your hands against the wall or the blocks, the foot on the ground. Take a breath in. And as you breathe out, land the foot again. Let your knees soften. Walk the hands down the wall or release the hands towards the floor and come towards a ragdoll position by bending your knees, letting the belly rest over the thighs and the upper body just hang down. This might feel good as it is, or you might prefer a little sway here. Then uncurl the spine as you breathe out. Rising to a stand, give the shoulders a lift and a shrug down. Now, if you were practicing this against the wall, you might still like to have a few blocks. I will take now one of those blocks and place that at the other side of the mat. You might turn towards the long side of the mat and lightly separate your feet. Turning the right toes outwards, the back heel a little bit out as well. We'll come to a familiar shape now. While breathing in, lifting the arms out. And while breathing out, tilting that to a triangle. We've risen the last triangle up from the floor. So feel into a similar stance here. Find your length and openness. And maybe finding or choosing your gazing point. We will bend into the front knee, let the arms come back out, your warrior two. The back hand might end up in your waist, and you could reach down towards the block from here. And similar to what we've done with the warrior three, you might lean into the block and perhaps lifting the other foot. You might flex that foot and roll your shoulder back. And some might even want to extend the top arm. You're clever if you're still looking down, and you might be challenging yourself looking up. Let's point to the toes, land the foot down, and release your arms as we come to stand again, wide-legged on the mat. As you let everything hang and you're just simply standing here, notice how energy is moving downwards, guided by gravity. But let your breath lift the energy back up as you inhale fully, and then downwards as you're breathing out. Then we will change sides, turning the left toes out, the other heel a bit towards the back of the mat. A breath in to lift the arms out, and a breath out to tilt for a triangle. Your arms can be fully extended. I'm modifying from my shoulder. And you might feel that length in the sides of the body, the openness here in your chest. Let's take a breath in to bend the front knee. Let arms come out, warrior two, variation thereof. The back hand coming into the side of the waist. As you might reach forward in the direction of your supporting block. You might lean the weight into the block a little. Perhaps the back foot is lifting. And if it does, do flex it. Beginning to stack hips, then maybe even shoulders. And the same here, if you look down, there's a good way to balance. If you want a challenge, you might choose to look upward. Arm extension is also an option. Let's point the foot behind and land again in that wide stance, releasing your arms down. Having the outer edges of the feet parallel with each other. Take an inhale as you open your heart again. An out breath as you might let your hands support on the legs, moving towards a forward bend. You can grab either of your blocks. If your arms feel a bit short, place them underneath your hands. Or you could use the floor itself to lean towards. Shifting your weight ever so slightly forward, give the shoulders a gentle lift. Maybe landing the hands on the ground and also the knees onto the floor. I'm now turning myself a little bit sideways. You could sit towards the heels of your feet and bring the hands in that direction, maybe even interlacing the hands behind. Alternatively, have your hands resting by the sides to support. Tucking the chin in. If it feels okay to have the head low, lift your hips up, roll to the top of the head. Your choice there is to raise your arms or keep them resting, keeping the shoulder blades slightly squeezing, no matter your choice. A little inversion, Sasangasana, as you keep your head low, staying here for a couple more breaths. On your next out breath, release your interlace, let the hips sink to the heels and maybe land in a child's pose or balasana. Bringing your hands out in front, maybe stacking the fists, perhaps resting the forehead onto stacked fists. And out breath now to uncurl the spine, rolling up to a seated position, giving shoulders a gentle shrug, and then extending the legs out in front. As we take our legs out long, you could choose to bring a little support back in. I will use a folded blanket today. Rolled up end of the mat is another good choice. Let's bend the right knee and bring the foot a little bit in, whether that's along the leg or high up is no problem. You can keep yourself quite as open as you are and bring the fingertips down into the ground. Taking your left hand and swing that across to the outside of the right knee. Slide the right hand fingertips behind and then sit back onto both sitting bones. The body upright, the foot in flexion on the long leg, and then out breath here for a twist. Try and relax as much into the shoulders as you can while using your hand and knee gently against each other to assist with the twist of the spine. On inhale, as you let the back of the hand touch your long leg. And a breath out as you're starting to lean, sliding the hand down the inside of the leg towards it. The other hand can rest in the side of the waist or swing over the head, palm facing down. Keep the flexion in the foot on your extended leg as you might lean a little bit further in. Breath in and out as you roll your top shoulder down, uncurl the spine, and then changing your legs over, extending right leg and bending the left knee, and your choice where to place the foot. Finding yourself facing into the space between the legs, the hands come down. And you start to shift the weight down to both sitting bones as you sit quite heavily and grounded. Take the opposite hand towards the outside of the knee. Let the left hand slide a bit further behind you and keep the pressure into the knee as you're starting to twist. Holding yourself within the twist and using that gentle pressure between the back of the hand, the knee, to guide you further. As you next breathe in, take the hand from the knee and place it to the inside of your extended leg. And let it slide down there as you breathe out to bend towards this leg. Keeping your top shoulder back, the left hand could be in the side of the waist, or you could swing it over the head. Leave the palm of the hand facing down as you keep your side bent. Keeping also the flexion in the foot on your long leg. Let your shoulder roll into the center. Uncurl your spine, extending both legs out in front. And it is time to lie back down onto the mat. So perhaps bringing a blanket or cushion for the head. Perhaps even allowing a bolster underneath the knees. We'll come to lie down when you are ready. Maybe there's even a blanket on top of you. Depending on when you do this practice, this might be cozy, warm. And settling yourself in once you're lying here with or without a bolster underneath, just wiggling your shoulder blades a tad bit closer. Noticing how the arms position themselves almost a bit away from the body. If this felt right, turn the palms down, touching index and thumbs together. If this is not essential, if you prefer the palms up, open shoulders, perfectly fine as well. Let your legs relax or come back to constructive rest if that serves you better. Closing your eyes if that's available to you. And acknowledging your body as it is now, grounded onto the mat. Feeling the support of the earth underneath you. Perhaps from the safe place in which you are right now, beginning to explore your options. What does it mean for you to take that path upward? So what you might want to do is move past fear. Move past control and anger. Do not harm anything. Study the scriptures. Have goodwill for all. And put others ahead of yourself. Buddha said in the Dhammapada, our life is shaped by our mind. We become what we think. Let that sit for a moment. We become what we think. We can either cultivate and grow the destructive qualities of the lower self that lead to the downward path of bondage and suffering. Or we can choose to nurture and develop the divine qualities within the self, that lead to the upward path of freedom and fulfillment. Whatever we think about and focus on, we will move towards, act upon, and ultimately bring into existence. Our dominant thoughts and actions become our life. So be mindful and select them with care. Perhaps these words pointed your thoughts in a new, different direction. Perhaps you found some confirmation in these words. You might choose to set that control of where to place your energy and awareness out for the rest of this day, or even the week. As you gently begin to deepen your breath, perhaps finding a bit of movement again in the body, or enjoying a stretch. And slowly, in your own way, arising to a seated position, you could choose to roll to your side, or you could choose to sit up over the front of the body, taking your time. When you come to sit without disturbing yourself too much, you might like to steady your gaze or close the eyes. And you can definitely choose to bring hands together in front of the heart space, or choose to touch one hand there, the other one closer to the pelvis, connecting to your base as well as the heart. We might finish our practice with 3 rounds of Om, Lam, Lam, the seed sound for the base, Om, the universal sound. If you like to join in, let's start with the first breath in. Om, Lam, Om, Lam, Om, Lam. Feeling connected directly from your base to the heart and beyond. As we gently bow to extend to each other. Namaste.